in to bring you the Farseer Hero Talents for Elemental and Resto Shaman. So we're going to go over the talents really quick and what they do. Then we're going to bring in Theun to discuss how this feels, or how this might feel for a Resto Shaman's point of view. Starting off, the Call of the Ancestors. Primordial Wave for Elemental or Unleash Life for Resto calls an Ancestor to your side. Whenever you cast a healing or damage spell, the Ancestor will cast a similar spell. You can kind of think of this as the Naru from Divine Image that Holy Priests are playing with. You then are going to start with the right side here. Again, you get all the talents anyway. But Elemental Reverb gives an extra charge of Lava Burst or an extra charge of Riptide. So I would assume that this would stack with Echo of the Elements to have 3 charges of Riptide, potentially. Should be interesting. Heed My Call in the center here. Ancestors last an additional 2 seconds. Routine Communication. Riptide has a chance to call in an Ancestor. Or Elemental's Lava Burst casts have a chance to call an Ancestor. Latent Wisdom, your Ancestor's spells are 20% more powerful. The Ancestors have a 15% chance to call another Ancestor when they expire. Offering from Beyond, when an Ancestor, we're using this word a lot, is called, they reduce the cooldown of Fire Elemental and Storm Elemental by 10 seconds. When an Ancestor is called for Resto, they reduce the cooldown of Riptide. So that might tie in a little bit with the Elemental Reverb to have all of those extra charges if you're finding a way to just mash out a whole bunch of little adds to help you out, to give you even more uptime on Riptides and even more casts. Primordial Capacity increases your max Maelstrom by 25 or your max mana by 5%. Spirit Walker's Momentum, using spells with a cast time, increases the duration of Spirit Walker's Grace and Spirit Walker's Aegis by 1 second, up to a maximum of 4. I'm kind of interested if this means that it's going to be casting spells during Spirit Walker's Grace, or if it's casting spells beforehand, kind of pools up that time for later on. Final Calling. When an Ancestor expires, they cast Elemental Blast on a nearby enemy. For Resto, when they expire, they cast Hydro Bubble on a nearby injured ally. This is placing an Absorb on that injured ally, which will then actually decay over time. So it's a bit of spot healing, but if, they don't actually benefit from that Absorb, the Absorb will then decay. Maelstrom Supremacy increases the damage of Shock, Elemental Blast, and Earthquake by 8%. Resto increases the healing done by Healing Wave, Surge, Wellspring, Downpour, and Chain Heal by 8%. Nature's Harmony reduces the cooldown of Nature's Guardian by 10 seconds and causes it to heal for an additional 5% of your max health, so that's potentially helping some of the defensive value for Shaman. Earthen Communion gives you more charges of Earth Shield and heals you for 25% more. I'm not too sure that that's going to be something you're playing around with. We'll see. And Ancestral Swiftness. Your next healing or damage spell within 10 seconds is instant and deals 10% increased damage and healing. If you already know Nature Swiftness, it is replaced by Ancestral Swiftness and causes your Ancestral Swiftness to call an Ancestor to your side. So now, to bring a bit of the discussion going on for this talent, we got Theun, notable Resto Shaman Gaslighter. How's it going, man? What are your thoughts so far about Farseer Shaman?
So it's like Grove Guardians for Resto Shaman, I guess.
I feel like it's Divine Image. I feel like it's the Holy Priest Divine Image.
Yeah, it is a little like it's like use an ability and that procs the pet, which is a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, because the Grove Guardians is just auto casting no matter what happens with the Druid.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. It's not like I don't really know what I was expecting from Farseer, but it's all right. I like that they're tying in things like Wellspring and Downpour and stuff. Those don't get very much love, and they've been a little undertuned throughout Dragonflight, so it's cool to see those spells get like added into stuff. Mm-hmm. It's strange that they start you with Unleash Life, because you very rarely, if ever, run that in Mythic Plus. And there are raid builds that you can also take that don't run it, so I guess that kind of forces you into that button, which is a little weird.
So it looks like it's pushing you into that, and then also increasing a lot of the Riptides that you're going to be casting as well. And so is that just shaping and forcing you into a very narrow talent build or talent setup as a result for raids? How is that going to work?
So I think you Echo of the Elements currently only gives Riptide and Lava Burst charges. I see that you also get an additional charge of Riptide. I think you just not take Echo of the Elements now, because you actually get your your 2 Cloudburst charges from elsewhere in the tree. So
Oh, okay.
that would free up a point, I guess. I think, ironically, the better build for this is just like the chain heal stuff. Because you can take a node that buffs chain heal by 8%, which is good, and you're already casting Riptide regardless of the build you're playing. So you aim for the same amount of cast of Riptide regardless. So it's not necessarily like pushing you towards one, I don't think.
Okay.
I guess my concern would be, like, does any of this healing go into things like Cloudburst Totem or not? If that's not true, then that would maybe sway what you do.
Yeah, has Shaman ever had like pets that are producing healing for it? And
yeah, like totems and stuff. And then things like even your Ancestral Guidance doesn't, or not Ancestral Guidance, Ascendance doesn't actually, it doesn't feed Cloudburst Totem. So that would be like my biggest worry, I think, because that would be a big hit to a couple builds.
Yeah, okay, so potentially you would have this extra pet that's by your side, or even a swarm of pets by your side, that's healing, that's helping you produce output, and then not actually feeding into any healing for your Cloudburst. Still kind of making it... I mean, I feel like it's been eroded over the years. Am I wrong on that? Where Cloudburst has kind of gotten worse and worse?
Yeah, it's quite a bit weaker, longer cooldown, which means it's like even harder to use, I think, properly. So yeah, it's a little strange, but I think it's like a mid. It's not exactly exciting, but it's also not like super overpowered. So it's like, I guess it fits the theme moderately well. But yeah, I don't know, like off the top of my head, if there'd be any changes that would make like what those would be.
Yeah, their whole like fantasy, you know, the class fantasy is harnessing spiritual magic, improving your spell casting capabilities, and empowering you to call upon an ancestor to aid you and your allies in combat.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if this just was the same as Elemental, and it just also went off of Primordial Wave. You take it in Mythic Plus and Raid almost all the time, so that would be kind of cool.
And so, but you would get it less frequently, right?
Yeah, it's like it'd be a 45-second cooldown or a 30-second cooldown, but I believe it's the same for Elemental. I might be wrong on that, but I think theirs is also a longer cooldown. So,
and so do you think that having it play around Unleash Life makes you take a certain talent, like taking Unleash for M+, if you wanted to play this? Obviously, we don't know the other Resto Shaman version, but do you think it's like, hey, we might have one hero talent that's a Mythic Plus version and one that's like a Raid version, and then it's just kind of, that's it?
Yeah, this doesn't feel very Mythic Plus-y to me. Like there's very little single target healing stuff in here, except for like giving you more Riptides, I guess, but you don't really run out of those often. So yeah, this feels a little bit more oriented towards Raid, I think.
Okay, and what do you think is like the biggest like positive? Like, do you think Ancestral Swiftness is like a big positive because maybe you don't take NS and have a different one, or are there that many good class options?
Yeah, that thing is really good. Like something that people don't use enough is Nature Swiftness just for mana. It's like it makes your next healing spell free, which is 14k mana if you use it on chain heal, and this is a 45-second cooldown instead of a 2-minute cooldown. So that's a lot of mana gained just from that alone. If you just send it on chain heal every single time, plus you're spawning a little pet as well to heal. So that's really good, especially if you pair it with other, bonuses like High Tide and stuff.
And so it sounds like from reading it is that if you know Nature Swiftness, it's replaced by Ancestral Swiftness and causes your Swiftness to call an Ancestor. So it sounds like you cast the Ancestral Swiftness, spawning an Ancestor, and then the chain heal activates afterwards, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And if you don't talent Nature Swiftness, then you would just get the instant cast heal, not the Ancestor as well, I think.
Okay. And so you still end up getting really big mana discounts.
Exactly. It's just a huge mana buff to the spec, yeah.
And what do you think were there any like really big weaknesses for Shaman sort of entering into the hero talent discussion, like specifically for raids? If let's just imagine that Farseer is going to be the raid one. What are the big weaknesses Shaman has? Does this sort of fill these in or not so much?
It's basically just doing passive damage, which is kind of I don't think this is really adding much. I guess it does ancestor or copy the spells that you're casting, so you
Yeah.
can technically DPS during that, and maybe that would be a good amount of damage. But I don't think Restoration Shaman has very many weaknesses. I think it's one of the problems right now. And this kind of just buffs the things it's good at, which is fine. Gives you a lot more mana, which is also, I guess, good for the spec. So yeah, I don't like. This is nothing but good, I think.
Sweet.
Just a matter of how good. We'll see. So.
Okay, so talk to me about Spirit Walker's momentum. It says using spells with a cast time increases the duration of Spirit Walker's Grace by a second up to 4. That sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like you could build up this buff for Spirit Walker's Grace before you activate it? Or is it during it, it just kind of extends the duration?
I think it's only during. So this reads a little bit more of like a PvP thing, because you often take Spirit Walker's Aegis, which is like prevents you from getting kicked.
Okay.
So it's nice in a situation like that. I don't think this has too many uses outside of PvP. It's more of just like a nice quality of life increase.
Because how long does it last with Grace right now? Like 12 seconds?
That sounds correct, yeah. And I don't think so. People are probably gonna be like, oh, you can make your Spirit Walker's Tidal Totem thing longer. I believe that's tied to Mana Tide, not Spirit Walker's Grace. So
okay,
that wouldn't
seconds.
increase anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're casting Spirit Walker's Grace anyway, you're probably already casting, spells with a cast time anyway, so
Exactly,
it won't be too hard to cast 4 spells during that. Okay. And then Nature's Harmony versus Earthen Communion. We have the auto heal from Nature's Guardian and heals you for more, or more Earth Shield charges that also heal you for more.
You would only ever take Earthen Communion. Nature's Harmony or Nature's Guardian isn't great. Has like a decently long cooldown. I think it's like 90 seconds or something. And the amount of times you have to recast Earth Shield just because it runs off from AoE damage is absurd. So having an additional 3 charges helps a lot, and just like some additional healing, I guess, through it, which is nice.
Okay. And so, are you putting up double Earth Shields? Is that what the meta is like now for Shaman?
Yeah, you always have Earth Shield on yourself and then on some other player. So
got it. So you'd have 3 additional charges for both you and somebody else, and so it's just less globals that you need to attribute to just casting Earth Shield all the time.
Yeah, which is actually kind of nice in Mythic Plus. Like that frees up a lot of damage globals, to be honest with you. So
okay, sweet. And so then we kind of have to look at how much impact these ancestors are going to have. So one thing I was talking about before with Holy Pally is there's a lot of passive abilities that are triggering other healing, right? You cast Holy Shock, it triggers your tier set bonus, it triggers Glimmer, it triggers all that stuff. And so when you don't have those other passives working, you don't have Glimmer spread out, you don't have the Sacred Reverb set up or anything like that, it feels like your abilities kind of do nothing. With the whole healer power creep we've experienced over Dragonflight, are you a little bit worried about having these ancestors potentially diminishing the healing of Chain Heal or Heal Wave or Riptide because they're expecting additional healing to come from the ancestor?
Yeah, like the Maelstrom Supremacy thing, it buffing Chain Heal by 8%, I think is really dangerous. Chain Heal already has a lot of different talents that buff it right now. Mm-hmm. So if you have none of those talents, it's a really bad spell. But if you have all the talents, it's very, very good. And this is just adding more to that table. So it's kind of like an all or nothing button now. And I'm really worried that they're going to be able to balance it properly because it's way too overpowered right now.
And you're also going to be getting even more Chain Heal cast with the reduced cooldown for Ancestral Swiftness.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I'm worried a little bit. It's probably my biggest worry with the hero talents in general, but hopefully with enough feedback we'll be able to get to a good point.
Okay, so what kind of feedback would you have? What should they be adjusting? What should they be messing around with from the hero talents right now?
I like that they're buffing like Healing Wave, Healing Surge, and Wellspring. Those are buttons that have been kind of underutilized this expansion. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably the direction that they should go, is for specs that don't have many talents buffing spells in their spec trees, then maybe you can add some more of those into the hero talents instead. I know, like, an example for other healers is like Holy Priest hasn't used Flash Heal and Heal all that much this expansion, at
Yeah.
least in like a raid scenario.
Mhm.
And so maybe you could add a couple of talents that just buff those spells instead of also like Sanctify and Circle of Healing and stuff. So
Yeah, that's a good point. And okay, so if we're talking about the primary strengths of this hero talent tree being more raid focused, kind of in general, what would you want to see out of maybe a more Mythic Plus focused tree for the other shaman setup?
So I think one thing that especially Elemental has been struggling with is defensives. I know there's like a whole topic on defensive creep and stuff, but
Yeah.
this one doesn't really have a very good defensive. So something like that is always going to be good in Mythic Plus. I don't know how much damage these things would add, but obviously damage in Mythic Plus is also really big, or buffing other people.
Yeah, would you see that for the enhancement resto tree? Would like
Maybe.
using what is
Yeah.
the official name of the enhance resto combo?
Totemic. So
Okay, so that's the totem action. Got it.
yeah.
So yeah, would you want to see? Oh yeah, it's literally on my screen. Would you want to see something like that where totems are being utilized to increase damage of other players or something along those lines, or increase your own healing instead?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of support gameplay, but it
Yeah,
seems like
it's like a fine
Lightsmith
line.
yeah, it's like Lightsmith, Oracle. They're kind of going down that route. So
Mhm.
long as everything is attributable, I'm kind of okay with it. If that's not the case and it's more like augmentation, then that's when it kind
Yeah.
of sucks. But I wouldn't mind if they went that route and it's like attributable and stuff. But we'll see. I really just don't understand. I don't know what to think of Totemic yet. So we'll.
Okay.
eagerly
Is
await
this
that one.
is this about what you expected out of the hero talents for shaman so far?
Yeah, I think it's like fine. It's not like super overpowered or anything, or it doesn't read that way to me. But I think that's a good thing. So
Yeah. And how much is shaman really trying to like put together a whole burst of healing? Let's say, for example, that the ancestors are not feeding your Cloudburst, but it really wants you to be casting many successive abilities together. Like, how are you going to maximize this in like a raid scenario?
that's kind of an issue with Shaman right now. Is you kind of do line up a bunch of your spells back to back. They actually tried to make a change in like 10.1 to remove a couple of the modifiers that we had. But I don't think this really adds to that. This is just the more you cast Unleashed Life, the better. So, and none of the other spells are like use this ability and then you get buffed necessarily. So, I think it's kind of just buffing how you would normally play, at least in a raid setting. And Mythic Plus, it's a little bit more awkward to use Unleashed Life that often.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you're gonna be using it a lot out of combat with a 15-second cooldown, just constantly like building up your next ancestor.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay, any talent here that you really just hate and you think it's stupid, think they need some changes? What do you got? Nature's Harmony, right?
Yeah, Nature's Harmony's not good. You would never take that. And I still don't like the Maelstrom Supremacy. I don't like it buffs chain heal, but it's okay, I guess. Everything else is like fine.
Okay. You think is there anything missing they should add?
I don't think so. I think it's
Okay.
like decent enough. So
Would you want to have something competing with Maelstrom Supremacy so that like Healing Wave, Healing Surge buffs were on one area and then like Wellspring, Downpour, Chain Heal was on another? Or would that just be not balanced?
that might work if you had like an AoE versus single target option. That could make it a little bit more feasible in like a Mythic Plus versus raid setting. But yeah, I think just like removing Chain Heal makes that node a little bit better.
Okay. Any other final thoughts?
Nope, I don't think so. I
Okay,
guess
what's
we're pet healing this expansion, so
True. All right, what's the grade you give for the Farseer talents?
it's like a decent theme, not too overpowered. Like maybe like a B.
Okay. Oh, we can take a B. I mean, it's not
It's
Oracle
it's
talents.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, room to improve, but it's not the worst thing ever. So it's yeah, it's not bad.
Hell yeah. All right, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. Thanks so much, Theun.
Yep. See ya.